just to make you aware that this week is Mental Health Awareness Week. You're aware, right? Job done. Cool, thanks. So as someone who has mental health, because we all have mental health, it's not a condition, we all have it, but as someone who has an illness that affects my mental health, I am here to raise awareness of it. Raising awareness on Mental Health Awareness Week. Groundbreaking, I know. So why did I feel the need to make this video? I'm glad you asked. The reason I wanted to make this video is for quite a few reasons really. Reason number one being, I'm a good actress, as many of us are. Many of us who have mental illnesses, we have got so good at hiding it. Like, it's Oscar-worthy, some of our performances, pretending that we're fine when we're not. I think sometimes I've even fooled some of the people closest to me into thinking that maybe I'm not as bad as I say I am, or they forget that I have it, or they think I deal with it better than I actually do, or I feel better than I actually do. And it's just kind of like, this is the reality. And I think it's good to kind of talk about the reality. And also it's really good going and finding information on the internet and reading stuff like from the NHS website, or professional websites that talk about anxiety and mental health. But it's also vitally important to listen to people's experiences, whether you are someone that is thinking they've got a mental illness or is struggling with a mental illness, or you're somebody that is close to someone or someone who wants to learn more about it. It's so important to listen to real people's experiences because everybody's brain is different. So I thought that I'd talk about my experience. I'm going to talk about the symptoms that I really feel. I'm going to talk about the real implications that my mental illness has on my life. And if you do know somebody and maybe they're not quite ready to talk to you, this can kind of give maybe an overview or an insight into what it's like to live with. And also if you're maybe not sure, you're feeling some of the symptoms that I talk about and you're not quite sure what it is, hopefully this will make it a little bit clearer. In general, raising awareness, because although we're getting better and it's becoming more prominent in media and more prominent on social media and more prominent in conversation, we're not there yet. We're not quite there. We're getting there. We're not quite there. I hope this will encourage more conversations and more understanding, and hopefully just a little bit of reality that, like, even though I say I've got anxiety and I seem quite confident, I've not got it all together. We're all winging it, and even those of us who look like we've got it together and that we're dealing with it really well, we have bad days. And they happen often. It's all a charade, it's all fake, it's all lies. So without further ado, here is my experience with anxiety. So the first thing that I want to talk about are symptoms. People confuse anxiety disorders with the feeling anxiety. And it's two very different things. People feel anxious for a variety of reasons, whether it's taking a driving exam or public speaking or having to hold a meeting at work or whatever it is. But that isn't an anxiety disorder. That is a feeling of anxiousness or a feeling of anxiety. So why this is a feeling of anxiety rather than an anxiety disorder is because it is rational and it's explainable and it makes sense. And a lot of the time it passes when the trigger is gone, such as once you've done the exam or once you've finished the meeting, those feelings of anxiety go. Now with an anxiety disorder, there isn't always a trigger. It can happen for no reason whatsoever. It's irrational, which means that it doesn't have a reason. There's no explainable reason as to why you feel that way, or the reason that you feel that way is never going to happen. It's something that is impossible or incredibly unlikely, but for you it feels incredibly real. And the reason why it can be so distressing is that if you're feeling anxious about something, you know why you feel anxious. It's not quite as distressing because you know as soon as that thing that's making you anxious is gone, such as an exam, you know that you're not going to feel that way anymore. Whereas when you wake up in the morning with feelings of fear and anxiety and dread, and you don't know why, it's very disconcerting. The second misconception with anxiety is that people just think it affects your mind and nothing else. It just affects the way that you feel. It doesn't have any physical symptoms. This is incorrect. Anxiety can affect you mentally and it can affect you physically. And it's this one that people can't quite comprehend. So, with that being said, I'm firstly going to go into the psychological symptoms. These are the psychological symptoms that I experience, and again, this will be different from person to person, but these are mine. So the first one is edginess, or being unable to relax. So constantly feeling that something bad is going to happen, but you don't know what it is and you don't know why. The only way I can describe it is like your brain is like a toddler on blue Smarties. It can't sit still, it can't focus on any one thing, and it's just throwing fears at you. What was if this happens? What was if this happens? You just can't relax, and it affects focus and concentration, and You might do things that are a bit silly because you're not thinking straight. It's incredibly annoying, especially when it comes over you for no reason all of a sudden, and you've been watching a film that you've been really enjoying, and it just decides to hit you like a ton of bricks, and you can't relax and enjoy the film, and it's just rude, really. It's rude. The next one is feeling irritated or sensitive, and by sensitive I mean easily upset or taking things the wrong way. And this kind of happens when, you know, we feel overwhelmed, our brains are so crammed with worry, and we feel the physical symptoms as well make us feel awful, and so every little thing kind of gets on our nerves, or we blow things out of proportion. We are far more emotionally affected by things that on a good day we'd let it slide and we wouldn't think about it too much, and we certainly wouldn't get upset over it. It's never a dull moment, it's an emotional roller coaster. Catastrophizing. This is quite a popular one with me, this happens a lot. So basically, things that are not a big deal, that are literally meaningless, become a massive issue. It starts off with with a thing, a tiny little thing, the size of a pinball. And you sit there and you think about it, 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 and before you've finished, you've got a massive giant gobstopper of a problem that was never a problem in the first place. I'm really struggling with anxiety, and somebody texts me something and I reply, and the reply is a bit short, or maybe they forgot to put a kiss on the end when they normally do, or they didn't put the little winking emoji thing at the end, and where normally I'd sit there and go, oh, it's fine. They don't mean anything by it, there's nothing wrong. If I'm in the throes of anxiety, that person now hates me. Because they didn't put that winking emoji on the end of the text, that person clearly hates me. It's ridiculous. And the thing is, I sit there and I know it's ridiculous. Do I stop catastrophizing? No! Dissociation and brain fog, for me, are two of the more distressing mental symptoms that I have. Dissociation, in a nutshell, is a feeling that the things around you and you yourself are not real. The only way I can describe it for someone who has never experienced it before is that it's a feeling that you're not really here, that this isn't really happening. Your brain kind of goes on an elaborate daydream, and you're not focusing on what's happening in front of you, and it's really, really distressing. One really weird example of this is that I get distressed when I can't remember what I look like in my head. Really, really odd. If I'm talking to someone and I can't picture what my face looks like when I'm talking to that person, I can't see it in my head, I find it really distressing because I don't feel like I'm here. I don't feel in the moment. When I'm talking to somebody, if I'm talking to you, as well as sort of like seeing in my mind's eye the things that you're talking about, I'm also envisaging what I look like when you're talking to me. And I don't know why, but I need to know that. Or sometimes if I'm walking down the street and I don't know, I've forgotten what I look like. And it's really weird because you don't think you would ever forget what you look like because you know what you look like. But sometimes I don't, and I forget what my face looks like, and I find it really distressing. So if I'm ever with you and you see me like catching my reflection in a shop window or in a mirror, I'm not being really vain. This is not me going, God, I look fit today. No, this is me going, oh yeah, that's what I look like. Yeah. Cool, right. So the next things I'm going to talk about are physical symptoms. So these are the physical symptoms that I experience. Again, different people experience different things. Nausea and stomach pain, it's not very nice. A lot of the nausea kind of happens first thing when I get up. I'm not physically sick, but I feel quite ill with it. Shaking. This is quite embarrassing because, I mean, it can be just like my hands shake a little bit, or it can be sort of my whole arms. And for those who don't know that I have anxiety, or shaking is something that my mental health makes me do, it can be quite embarrassing and something that I feel I need to hide. A way that people don't have as much confidence in me because I'm shaking and I look nervous. And the next one, having trouble sleeping and also having trouble waking up in the morning. Now this kind of makes sense, I suppose, if you've not gone to bed at a decent time the night before because you can't sleep, then obviously getting up early in the morning is going to be a bit of an issue. Even if I go to bed at a decent time and I manage to get a decent amount of sleep in the morning, you know, I've always joked for like most of my life that I'm not a morning person. I really, really wish I was. I'm just not, because my anxiety usually is at its worst when I first get up. And obviously when you wake up and you feel all of the mental symptoms and all the physical symptoms, sometimes a lot of them at once in the morning, it's not really an incentive to get up. And the one that I have the most hatred for, panic attacks. I hate these more than wasps, and that's impressive. So what happens during a panic attack? Again, people experience panic attacks in different ways, but the way that I experience a panic attack is the first thing that happens to me is my heart rate goes up, it spikes, and I can hear it in my ears. You know when you've gone for a run and you've stopped for a minute and you can hear your heart in your ears, or maybe you've been frightened by something and your heart rate goes up and you can hear it pumping in your ears? There's that. That's what it starts with, and when that happens I kind of know what I'm in for and what's coming next. Doesn't make it any less frightening, but I've kind of learnt to know the symptoms and I'm kind of a bit more prepared for it now than I was when I was younger. The next step is that it feels like someone has reached into my chest and got their hand around my windpipe and are squeezing it. And squeezing it and squeezing it and squeezing it to the point where I can't get a proper breath of air in. And that is terrifying. Breathing is kind of important to life in general. So when, for whatever reason, you feel like you can't breathe and you can't get a full lung of air in, that's terrifying and therefore furthers the panic. So you're panicking about panicking and it's just a great big vicious circle and it's terrifying. Next thing for me, I don't know whether this happens because there's a lack of oxygen, because obviously I'm hyperventilating, so there's not enough air going in, which is kind of important. But the next step for me is sort of pins and needles in my hands. Like if you know, if you faint and you get sort of that prickly feeling in your hands and feet, I get that. And I also get blurred, like a hazy blurry vision, so I can't see properly. So I now know, like, to get on the floor when this happens, to just sit down and try and ground myself on the floor. And you know, I'm not going to bump into anything, I'm not anything over. But the other side to that as well is after I've had one, I feel really quite sick and really tired for like sometimes a day afterwards, which people don't realise. I don't talk about it that often. It's horrible because I know that the next day I'm going to feel really lethargic and really tired and achy and not very well, and it's just not very nice. The next thing I want to talk about is implications of having anxiety and how it can impact your life. This is something that I don't show that often in life. I'm very much, I've become quite good at grinning and bearing it. Sort of implications it might have at work. My demeanour might be a bit different, which can be confusing for people. I might be a bit more quiet than I normally am, or not quite as, getting involved in banter. One of the major implications for being at work or in any situation where I have to speak is that I'm constantly full of ideas, I'm constantly writing things down, I'm constantly thinking. And a lot of the time I'll go to a meeting, and this has happened throughout my entire adult life really. I've gone to a meeting filled with ideas, and I've been sat in the meeting and I've been in the throes of anxiety and I've been too scared to speak because I've been scared of saying the wrong word or speaking too fast and nobody understanding what I'm saying. Or fear of the ideas themselves, that maybe they're not quite as good as I think they are. And on good days, none of that will bother me and I'll say the ideas. On bad days, I won't, and I'll go away with a head full of ideas. And it's a bit annoying, and it's something that I'm working on getting better at, slowly. And this is the one that really gets my goat at the moment. I can drive to work. I had to practice driving to it. After I got the job, I practiced driving to that place before I actually started, so I knew I could do it. And when I first got my car, my mum had to be in the car with me for a long time. And if I drive anywhere new, it's not that far away. It's not a hard drive, and somebody I know comes with me because I can't do it on my own. Which would be all right if I was about 17. I'm 24 this time, and it's embarrassing when you're asking for lifts at 24. I have an incredible support network that have never made me really feel like a burden, or have judged me for it, or have taken the mickey out of the fact that I'm 24 and asking for lifts even though I own a car. The implication of driving, despite what people might think, it's not for a selfish reason. And this is something I don't talk about that often because I'm quite embarrassed about it. So the thing with driving, this goes back to when I talked about dissociation and brain fog before. Putting these two together, and let's have panic attack in there as well. This frightens me, not for my own personal safety, because I could walk out the door tomorrow and get hit by a bus. I hope I don't, but I could. All of these have implications on other people. My worry about it is irrational. The chances of this combination happening is slim, but I know that it's possible, and that's what puts me off driving somewhere that I don't know, or driving far, or driving on a motorway, because if either of these or both of these implicate that could kill someone. So I'm not worried about my own personal safety, maybe I should be, but I would then have to live with potentially killing someone or really hurting somebody. And that terrifies me more than anything in the world. It's frightening, and you know, the embarrassment of asking for a lift, I'd much rather do that than having that in my head. And one day, this will be gone. This will not be an implication anymore. I know it will. I always tell myself one day, this won't be an issue anymore. Or maybe not as big an issue as it is now. That's something I had to take comfort in. Compared to a few years ago, this is part of a very, very small list. Which means one day, that will go. And I'll be able to say, I can do that, and it's not an issue. And finally, panic attacks have a massive implication on my life because they can happen for no reason whatsoever. And this is kind of why I took a break from banding. As I explained in quite a lot on my blog, that it can happen at any point, which when your hobby involves being on stage in front of people, it's quite embarrassing that if that were to happen. And it is constantly in the back of your mind, and even though I look like I'm having fun, and I am usually having fun and whatever, but it is, no matter what I portray to people or what I look like in front of people, it's always in the back of my mind. No matter what I'm doing, it's always in the back of my mind of, could this be the day when I have a panic attack in public and people see? Could this be the day where I have it in a place that's inconvenient and dangerous? And also when I meet new people, like, especially this has been a big thing for like relationships and friendships. When I meet new people, I'm terrified of having one in front of them because I don't know how they're going to react. For somebody else to witness somebody having a panic attack, I would imagine it's quite distressing. I've had to get my head around in that if, you know, I can't sit in my room all day, I have to go and live life. There's so many things I want to do, and this thing is not holding me back. It might make things a bit more difficult, but it's not holding me back, and it's something that, you know, it's taken a long time to get my head around, but I'm doing it. And if you're at a position now that you feel that panic attacks and anxiety are having a massive impact on your life, it's not forever. It's not forever. You will figure out how to kind of find that balance. Some of us look really cocky and really confident and look like we have it all together, and we don't. None of us do. No one does. It's a lie. It's a myth. No one does. But because of that, people don't necessarily look at you with any kind of sympathy or empathy because you seem fine, and sometimes you're not. Sometimes it's good just to kind of sit back and admit, sometimes to yourself, like, you know, this has been a good exercise for me to kind of realise, you know, this is what I live with on a regular basis, and I do need to be a bit more kinder to myself. And also it's good to talk about it to other people and say that, you know, this is what I live with on a regular basis. And I suppose it's easy to say it on camera than it is to say it to a person, and hopefully this is the first step in encouraging me to be a little bit more open. I'm far more open than I used to be, but you know, it's good to practice, and I know that I don't talk about it as much, and I do pretend I'm alright when really I should explain to someone that I'm not very well today. Not necessarily to get sympathy or any kind of special treatment, but just to say that, you know, if I act weird or if I say the wrong thing or I'm a bit quiet today, it's not because I hate everyone, or it's not because I don't have any ideas in my head, or I can't be bothered, or, you know, I want the day off, or I don't want to do the thing, so I'm just saying this. It's just to make you aware that, you know, it's just to, you know, make people aware, raise awareness that this is how it affects me. So, in short, I hope that this has helped. So this week, with it being Mental Health Awareness Week and all the weeks that follow, please, 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 please start conversations, get involved in conversations, the more that we all are just a little bit more open and a little bit more honest, and myself is included in this, the easier it's going to be. It's going to be like talking about the weather, because it's something that everybody has either talked about or gone through, and it'll be easy to talk about. So, I hope this has been helpful. Please keep talking.